Hello Buttercup, welcome back to my channel. Today's book review is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is her first ever novel. Can you all believe that? I have read officially as of right now, okay? All of her books, minus a short story. I'm gonna work on how to get that short story because I don't have ebook access, whatever, but I got all of her books. And I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Now, I have seen in multiple spaces for readers that this is a romance. No, it is not, y'all. Please don't go in thinking that this is a romance. This is a women's fiction. There is no happily ever after with Elsie's husband. Her husband dies in a accident, like within a couple of chapters. So definitely not romance, but that doesn't mean that it's less than. It is women's fiction about grief, and I think that's very important. Now, the summary for this book is that Elsie Porter and her husband Ben Ross, they have a whirlwind romance. They only know each other for 6 months, and he goes out to buy cereal for her, and he gets hit by a car because he's on his bike, and he dies fairly quickly. And so Elsie is now a widow, and they were barely married 2 weeks in. And so her best friend Anna and Ben's mom Susan are the 2 very important side characters going on in this novel, because she is, of course, grieving, and she's also trying to figure out what to do with her life, because, like I said, a whirlwind romance. They've only known each other for 6 months, and then they got married just a couple of weeks before he died. So there's a lot going on there. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars because this is gonna be great. I'm not like a huge fan of Elsie. Wow, yeah. Was she interesting? Yes, to a certain extent. However, she was very nasty to Anna and to Susan, and she made it all about herself. Now, I know the stages of grief. Anger is very much part of the stages of grief. I understand I've lost people, okay? But that doesn't give you the right to be disgustingly rude and even violent to people around you. I have a problem with that. Okay. I have lost people and I have grieved, and never have I done the things that Elsie has done. And I know that there were probably thoughts on, should this go through, should it not go through? Because there are people that will be just as mean, if not meaner, than what Elsie was portraying. But I don't know. I could see something a little bit differently in maybe writing out the anger section of grief. For example, she is being hit on by a guy who is very nice. He's not mean or anything. He wasn't touchy grabber or anything like that. But she is being asked out. He says something and then she punches him in the face at her work in a library. I don't know. Look, yeah, that's a little much. You just assaulted someone because you were triggered. I am not really into that. And then at least only one person was like, yay, good job. And he's like 90 years old. He's Mr. Callahan, who hangs out at the library all the time, and so she knows him. But everyone else was like, we don't do that here, Elsie. You need to get your shit together. And yes, she did. She needs to get it together. I was also just slightly bothered by the fact that she thought, oh yeah, I'm being mean, but I don't actually care. And so then she would yell at Anna or Susan, or she would say, Ben is the most important person in the whole world and no one else matters, and it's just me and my grief. I'm like, oh, okay, oh girl, no. It's so weird. Have I heard people say that? Yes, but it doesn't take that long to realize, oh, that's a weird thing to say, or that's wrong, or oh, that's not correct, or something like that. She holds on to that whole concept for most of the book. And I'm just reading like, this is a bit odd, Elsie. You're definitely not the only one that has lost someone, i.e. Susan, who has lost her son, and then also not too long ago lost her husband as well. I think if you're going to play the Olympics of grief, she's gonna win. But that was kind of what was happening throughout the whole book. Like, Elsie was, I'm the worst off in this whole entire world. I'm like, no, you are not. So that was, it got old pretty fast, honestly. That's why I could not give it 5 stars. I could see her other books, Taylor's other books, where there is that idea of grief and how do you handle it, and what are like the, I guess you could say, appropriate ways where you can still feel anger, but you're not assaulting people. And you're not taking it out on like every single person around you, and you're not saying that you're the only person who knows what sadness feels like. So I think Taylor Jenkins Reid got better with writing grief. Now, have I seen and heard of people acting worse than Elsie? Yes, but I think with the story itself and how Taylor positioned the story, and Elsie and Susan and Anna and just like everyone else, I don't think it completely matches Elsie's personality. And I don't know why you would want to do the whole woe is me, I'm the only person in the world that knows what sadness is about, so everyone can F off and I deserve to be mean to people and assault people. I don't know, that's a little weird, because like I said, she does it better in other books, as in like showcasing and talking about the grief process. This is her first book. I can see how she is experimenting, right? And she doesn't maybe particularly know how to do it in a way that works for the character and the story. I could see the argument that I want to really showcase anger. And I totally get that. But I think also mentioning or like talking about or showcasing the other stages of grief would be a little bit more fleshed out. She did get to that eventually in Forever Interrupted, but it was mainly a lot of anger at everyone. And I'm like, okay, I totally get that. It is a valid emotion, but I am not feeling sympathy or empathy after a certain point with Elsie because she's so mean and violent. And I would want a little more pushback if that was going to go forward. I wanted even more pushback from Anna and Susan and the people that she works with, and even strangers that she was a bit snippy at. That would have made it a little bit stronger, because she was coasting, honestly. She was coasting that whole widow thing, but what is going on? That sounds like a weird airplane, but it's not. I'm so sorry. We're just gonna let that pass. I don't even know what that is. I lost my train of thought. Cool. That's cool. Well, I think that especially Susan should have pushed back, because you also get to see throughout the book that Elsie is very greedy and honestly self-absorbed and needy, and it's like someone needed to tell you to stop it. Ben doesn't, and that kind of is what bothers me. You see, spoiler alert, the end of the book, you have this scene where Ben still hasn't told his mom after 6 months, and they're gonna get married in Las Vegas on a whim. And so like he stops maybe like halfway to Las Vegas. He's like, oh no, I can't, I have to tell my mom. And like, you should have, okay? But then Elsie talks him out of it, and I think she's being manipulative. Then he's like, oh no, no, no. Oh, don't cry, please don't cry. Okay, we're gonna go to Las Vegas. Okay. And she tells Susan that, and Susan is rightly upset because you told her son not to tell her, like, it's not good, Elsie. It's not looking good for you. It's not looking good for Ben. Here's what, like, my thoughts throughout this whole book is, why do you need to get married 6 months in? Why do you need to move in 4 months in? Why? I could see little blips of how when like their little honeymoon phase would end, where there would be a lot of problems. Like Elsie and her parents, not close at all. Her parents are very type A and cold and so on and so forth. And Elsie is not like that, but I think the only relationship she's had that's really, you know, full of love is Anna, and that's not blood related or romantic. So then when she finds Ben at a pizza shop and he shows like adoration, she's just swept up. And I don't know if that's healthy on both sides. I don't think that him being so obsessed with her is healthy, and I don't think her being so obsessed with him is healthy. And I don't know if that relationship, like 5 or 10 years down the line, would be successful. She does manipulate a lot, and he does give in to her a lot, and there is some pushback, but he doesn't do it enough, and he doesn't say no. She doesn't say no. And then the whole hiding the marriage, and she should have told him, you need to tell your mother, but he is like, oh, I don't want to because dad recently died. And it's like, well, you just created a volcano out of an anthill, didn't you? Because you weren't brave enough to tell your mom simply, oh yeah, I'm dating someone, this could be the one. That's really, you didn't need to say all that much. Or you could just say, I'm dating someone and not include the second half. Like, there are a lot of things that you can say. I understand having to tell someone that you're scared to say something like big about, especially Susan lost her husband of like 30 years. Like, yeah, that's like, yeah, but you have to look long term. The problem here with Elsie and Ben, they weren't thinking long term. They were like, ooh, you're amazing and hot and you're great at sexy time, and oh my god, let's go like really fast. Not thinking about how marriages that are stable and last would work. And it's not particularly manipulation and having sexy time multiple times a day, every single day. Eventually things change, and I don't know if it would be a successful marriage. It's a successful marriage because they were only there together, married for 2 weeks before he was killed in a car accident. But reading the second half where you see more flashbacks with Ben and Elsie, I don't know if it would have lasted. And that's kind of sad. And I don't know if that was intentional or not with Taylor, but I think by the end, Elsie realizes, finally, that she can't be mean to people just because she's sad. Wow. And that just because it was short doesn't mean that you have to forget about it. That's true as well. And that, yes, she can move on, but still be friends with Susan. And good for her. We took all that to get to those 3 realizations at the end, but at least we got there, okay? I think I would be more annoyed if we didn't get there. I'd be like, Elsie, come on, sweetie. Where's the therapist? You need to talk to a therapist at this point, because I can't deal with it anymore. Yeah, there were some parts where I'm like, ugh, Elsie, shut up. You're being so rude for no reason. Especially when she's rude to Anna or Susan. I'm like, the 2 people that are there for you, you're gonna be like that. After a certain point, they should have snapped back, and they do. Like, eventually, you should have honestly did it within the first month. I understand, okay? I've lost people, I've grieved, I understand, but that does not give you the right to be disgustingly mean. Full stop, my opinion, okay? So that's why I was not a huge fan of Elsie. But I still think that it's a very interesting case of grief and how this one person deals with grief, especially when the whirlwind romance was still whirling. Is that a word? It was still going. Because you're still at the honeymoon phase here, and you went really, really fast, and like, do you even really know him? Not really. And she does admit that at the end, and like, progress here. So she actually knows Susan better than Ben, I would argue, after a certain point, because she's hanging out with Susan more than she did with Ben. And yeah, you know, sometimes that weirdness happens. I do think that the grief process is better discussed and shown in Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books. However, this isn't horrible, this isn't bad. I think it's pretty good. But if you want to, for example, see the anger section more so than the other ones for the grief process in book form, Forever Interrupted would definitely be that book for you. And the writing is pretty good as well, but I can tell just a little bit that it's a little chunky and a little awkward in some spaces, but this is her first book. Also, at the end of the day, that would be an editor, agent, and publisher thing. Like, if they decided to add a bunch of periods and not have more of a flowing writing style, that's kind of up to them at a certain point and not really Taylor's problem. So I mentioned that because I was at first like, why there's so many periods in here, like and within like a paragraph there's like 10, and the paragraph is not even halfway through the page. That is probably not really up to Taylor, or it was and then she grew out of it, because that's in later books she doesn't do that. She's more flowing and I would say not as chunky with all of the periods there. But I absolutely do recommend Forever Interrupted if you can accept all that I said. I know some people would be cautious going in about Elsie being mean to everyone and her trying to justify that throughout the whole book. That's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But I think also if you're dealing with grief and you're kind of stuck in the anger phase and you can't really get out of it, this is a good book to read to maybe shake things up yourself, or just to get a new or another perspective of the grief process. Like, maybe you are stuck in a depression and you totally skipped anger, or maybe anger happened just like a couple days or something, but you are still in the grief cycle. I think this is a good book to read if you have lost someone, if you can handle it, of course. Thank you so much for watching my book review on Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!